Father Nonso. A story by E.B.'s Heart. Father Nonso was on his way to his new parish. He was posted to St. Paul's Parish, Igalo. He had heard so much about the parish, but it didn't matter because he believed God was with him. It was 3 p.m. and a hot, sunny afternoon when he got to the boundary between Igalo community and the other village. But immediately his car touched Igalo community's soil, the cloud went dark and a heavy rain started falling. He tried to put his headlight on to at least see where he was driving to, but it refused to come on. He continued driving, but the rain became too much and it was very dark. He looked at his watch and was shocked at the time. This is just 3:30 p.m, why is it so dark? What is going on? He decided to park his car and wait for the rain to stop a little, but noticed that his car was still moving, even though it was off. What is all this? He asked in shock, as his car had moved from the place he parked and was going into the bush. He jumped out of the car and watched as his car continued moving. The breeze is not much, how come my car is moving on its own? He thought in fear. But the next thing that happened shocked him even more. The rain became harsh on his skin and started tearing his cloth. It felt like someone was using a razor to tear his cloth and scratch his skin. That was when he went down on his knees under the rain and shouted, "God, God, if you really sent me here, then keep me safe." Once he said that, his car hit a tree, made a loud noise, and stopped. The rain ceased, but it was still pitch dark. When he stood up, his cloth fell off his body because it was badly torn. He was so shocked, so he picked it up and went to his car. He wore another cloth and drove his car back to the road. The rain had completely stopped, but the darkness persisted. He tried to put his headlight on again, but it still refused to come on. So he continued driving like that. He drove for some minutes and heard a loud sound, as if he had hit something. Then his car couldn't move at all. He came out with his flashlight to know what he had hit, but the flashlight refused to come on. He started crying and then brought his bag and started walking. He had not walked long when he heard sounds of dogs barking and running towards him. Because he could not see, he hid in the grass, but the unseen dogs stopped at a place, waiting for him to start moving. When he noticed that the dogs had stopped, he came out to walk again and the dogs rushed at him and bit his leg. He cried and started running back and out of the village. When he started running backward, he noticed that the darkness was clearing and the dogs stopped coming at him. That was when it became clear to him that the village didn't want him. Immediately he realized that. He started moving forward without fear and singing praises in a loud voice. As he was singing, the dogs stopped barking and following him. After walking for almost an hour with his bag on his head, he got to the parish house very weak. He noticed that he didn't meet anyone on his way and wondered why. He knocked at the gate and an old woman opened the gate for him and said, "I am the parish housekeeper. Is that why there is no light in the parish house? What is going on, and why is Igalo community in darkness at barely 6 p.m? Father Nonso asked in anger. "Tone down your voice while talking to me. You shouldn't have come here after seeing all the signs. Now your burial will be next week," the old woman said and laughed like a maniac. "What? What did you say?" Father Nonso asked in shock. "What did I say? I didn't say anything," the woman denied and took his bag inside the parish house. Immediately Father Nonso got in, he looked out of the window and saw 3 old women in black standing close to his window, chanting in a strange language. He slumped on the floor and passed out. "Father, Father, Father, are you okay?" The voice of a beautiful lady, who introduced herself as Pamela, woke Father Nonso up. "Yes, I am fine. Who are you?" Father Nonso asked the lady without even looking at her. She was wearing a short cloth that was too revealing, so Father Nonso got up and looked away. "I am the parish cleaner," she said. She was still talking when Father Nonso cut her short and asked, "What of the housekeeper, the old woman I saw earlier?" "An old woman? There is no such person here. I and the cook are the only ones who enter here every day," the lady replied while twisting her body seductively. Father Nonso told her to leave, saying he needed some time alone. He knelt down and called on God to give him strength and open his eyes to see the real and unreal things happening around him. Immediately he finished the prayers, he heard a knock on the door. A young man, about his age, came in and smiled. "Father, welcome. I thought you would not make it to this place. My name is Brother Matthew. I am the parish cook. Why did you think I wouldn't make it?" Father Nonso asked, still looking at him suspiciously. Matthew looked at him with a very strange expression and said, "Because no priest has made it to this parish in the last 5 years. They all die on their way here, or lose their minds before they get here. That is why the diocese has not sent any priest for some time now. We had even given up hope of getting one until we received a letter a few weeks ago that you were coming." All the things Matthew said scared Father Nonso, but he didn't show it. He prayed silently within himself, asking God to take control. "Seeing how young you are, I can tell you're a new priest," Matthew continued. He stood up and turned his back to Father Nonso. Father Nonso was shocked to see Matthew's strange features: 3 hands, 3 legs, and 2 heads. He was also very old. Father Nonso slowly got up and entered the chapel. He knelt down and prayed to God, saying, "Father, you know I was sent here, and I want you to use me to your glory." What Father Nonso didn't know was that the bishop had sent him there not because he was experienced, but because he was pure spiritually and had the fire needed to purify Igalo village. Igalo village had become a burial ground for her indigenes. Any member of the community who dared travel home never made it out alive or sane. So the community had been writing to the church, asking for a powerful priest to help liberate them. In the whole community, the only church that had not been burnt down was St. Paul's Catholic Church. "Father, your food is ready," Matthew's knock startled Father Nonso. "Keep the food, I'm coming," he replied. When he was done praying, he sat at the dining table while Matthew watched through the window. He opened the food and saw that the plate was filled with large, live worms. Matthew had assumed he wouldn't be able to see what was truly on the plate. Instead of eating, Father Nonso left the table, went into his room, and opened his bag. He brought out the little snacks he had packed and ate them, then went to sleep. Before sleeping, he stood up holding his Bible and holy water. He walked around his room, sprinkling the blessed water and marking his territory. "He refused my food," Matthew barked angrily. "And he said I shouldn't be here because I am too old," the old woman said, slithering like a snake. "He didn't even look at me when I introduced myself as his cleaner," Pamela hissed. "Who does he think he is? This village is ours, and no one can take it away from us," Matthew said. "We will march into his room now and make him mad, since he thinks he can dare us," the old woman added. As Father Nonso slept peacefully, the village's evil people filled the parish compound, chanting a strange tune while marching into the parish house. They were headed straight for Father Nonso's room. Father, who was in deep sleep, didn't even know what was going on. They got to his door, but the door turned into a wall right before them. "What is happening? Who is this Nonso boy that he is trying to defy us?" Matthew said angrily and started hitting the wall. They all joined him, hitting the wall with all their strength. But Father Nonso neither woke up nor heard anything. They stayed there until 4 a.m., trying to get into Father Nonso's room, but could not. Then they all left when it was almost dawn. "We have just 3 more days to kill him or make him mad. If he stays alive for 5 days in Igalo, then we cannot harm him anymore," Matthew said with worry. "First of all, he must eat something from us, or sleep with any one of us. That is the best way to get him. Once it's dawn, we will send Anjali, my beautiful daughter, to bring food to him. No man can resist her beauty. He must fall for her, then we will strike him at night," the church's women leader said with assurance. They all made various suggestions. Some said they would wash his cloth and put something on it. Others said they would volunteer to sweep his room and drop something that would make it easier for them to have access to his room. Their meeting ended by 5 a.m., and they all went home feeling disappointed but hopeful. Father Nonso woke up very strong and relaxed. He had slept so well. He entered the church and saw everywhere dirty and the chairs broken. "So, this means they have not prayed in this church for long?" he asked in disbelief. He wore his soutane, took his Bible and his cross, and walked out of the parish compound, singing in a loud voice. Matthew and Pamela ran outside in shock. They could not believe he made it out in one piece. Before he left his room, Father Nonso had asked God to open his eyes to see beyond the ordinary. So, as he walked into the village market, everyone stood in awe of him. A priest in our village. Some of the good men and women in the village, who were living in so much fear, ran out to meet him. They danced and praised God for sending a priest to them, a priest that made it to Igalo. When the evil ones saw him, they rushed to strike there and then, but Father Nonso instantly started spraying holy water at everyone. There is something about this one, he is morally pure and undented. That is why it is difficult to penetrate him. We need to destroy that innocence. Once we do, he will be a piece of cake, one of the evil men said to his cohorts. But something happened at the parish when Father Nonso left. A letter came from the bishop. Since Father Nonso made it, the diocese quickly sent a letter that they were sending a seminarian to help him. No priest had lasted more than a few hours there. They either died on their way or they died at night in the parish house. And the villagers' letter announcing their deaths never passed noon of the next day. The villagers always sent the letters with joy to the diocese. In this case, the diocese sent the letter even before noon. They already knew Father Nonso would survive because they saw the fire in him. We will use this letter well. Since it said the new seminarian will be here in 3 days, we will send our own person tomorrow, Matthew and his group said. So if Annuli fails to poison his food or seduce him, his new seminarian will succeed. They all laughed and gave the letter to the parish secretary, who was part of them, to correct the letter with correction fluid and seal it back. They did all that and dropped the letter in the parish mailbox. Father Nonso came back in the evening after walking around the whole village and inviting the good ones to a night vigil to reclaim their village. Everyone was excited. They told Father Nonso what they had been through, how any of their sons who made money in the city would return home and become mad or dead. I had 5 sons and 2 daughters, but they are all dead except one, a man said while pointing at his son, who was in chains under a guava tree. My 2 daughters died during childbirth, and I am broken. Father Nonso saw a lot of people in pain and bondage. So many youth in the village were roaming about naked or critically ill. He went home with a heavy heart. When he got home, he saw only Matthew in the parlor. Matthew didn't bother keeping food for him, he only told him about the letter in the box. Father Nonso went out, picked the letter, and was very happy. Thank God the seminarian will be here on time for this vigil that we'll be holding tomorrow, Father Nonso thought when he read the letter. As he was opening his room door to go in, Annuli was standing there half-naked, with a plate of hot rice in her hand, smiling. The smell of the rice filled his nose. He had been hungry and only eaten some wild fruits he picked on his way to the village market. Annuli smiled even more when she noticed that Father Nonso had stopped opening his door and was looking at her and the food. So, Father Nonso, after staring for a while, took the food from her hand, smiled at her, and said, "Follow me." Instead of Father Nonso to enter his room as Annuli expected, he took the food straight to the sitting room and sat down. Matthew, the old woman, and the church's women leader were hiding and looking through the window happily. "Yes, we got him. He is about to eat the food. I told you Annuli would bring him to his knees," the women leader boasted happily. But Father Nonso covered the food and warned Annuli never to dress like that and enter the parish house again. He also told her to leave with her food. Annuli ran out of the house crying. When Matthew saw what was happening, he immediately wanted to come inside and speak with Father Nonso, but Nonso got up and rushed to his room. He didn't even want to talk to anyone. He could feel his life was in danger, so he made sure to lock his room and even the window before going to bed. He had wanted to bathe, but decided not to, fearing they might attack him physically. They were all angry and still tried to enter his room, but met the same resistance. His door and windows had turned into walls. Father Nonso, who had refused to allow anyone touch his things, was washing his clothes the next day when he heard Matthew calling out his name. "Father! Father! The seminarian is here." Father Nonso happily went to meet the young seminarian. He thought the seminarian came earlier than the diocese had said, but didn't mind. Soon, they both began preparations for the upcoming vigil. Father Nonso and the seminarian, who introduced himself as Brother Solomon, went around the village. When they came back, Solomon prepared a little meal with the things Father Nonso bought from the market on their way back, and Father Nonso ate for the first time since his arrival. He was happy that at least he could trust one person. On the day of the vigil, the villagers managed to come and clean the church and its premises. They brought chairs from their homes and filled the church. Every family had either a very sick person or a mad person among them. The vigil was supposed to begin by 7 p.m., but by 6 p.m. the church was already almost full, mostly with sick people. Father Nonso fasted the whole day, even though the seminarian kept urging him to eat. He prayed in the chapel until it was time for the vigil. But something wasn't right with his stomach. He was having serious stomach ache and feeling dizzy. Still, he managed to walk into the church. Everyone stood up and danced happily when they saw him. They could not believe their eyes. But Father Nonso could feel something was terribly wrong. To everyone's surprise, he sat down first to regain his strength. "What is wrong?" they asked, as the good elderly women and men rallied around him. He told them he was feeling sick but would be fine soon. After some minutes, he managed to stand and walk to the altar to begin, but suddenly fell to the ground and fainted. Everyone rushed to the altar, lifted him, and ran to the health center. "Father Nonso must not die. He will not die," they chorused in tears. In the spirit, Father Nonso was in a serious battle, fighting a dozen witches who were trying to strangle him to death. The bad people were jubilating. "He almost won, but we got him," they said happily. The entire church members, who had once been afraid to even come near the church because of the evil ones, all knelt outside the hospital without fear, praying and crying to God to spare Father Nonso. He spent the entire night in a coma at the hospital. But early the next morning, Father Nonso woke up and began singing praises. He walked out by himself. When he got home, the seminarian hugged him and thanked God for his life. Father Nonso was about to go inside when he saw the man distributing letters, putting an envelope in their mailbox. He quickly went to pick the letter and opened it. He read it and froze in fear. The letter was from the diocese. "We are sorry to inform you that the seminarian who was supposed to join you had an accident and could not make it to Igalo as planned. Please bear with the diocese as a new arrangement is being made for the replacement of the seminarian." Father Nonso looked up in shock and thought, "Who then is this parading himself as the seminarian?" "Father, is everything okay?" the seminarian, Brother Solomon, asked, looking concerned. But Father Nonso smiled and said, "Yes, everything is fine now." They both walked into the parish house, and Father Nonso pretended that everything was all right. Solomon went to meet Matthew immediately, pacing about in frustration. "He survived, how come?" Solomon shouted angrily, revealing his true self. He was an old witch doctor, the leader of all the witches in Igalo village. He had the power to change into another person, or even an animal. "No one has survived the level of venom I injected in his food when I made it. Who is this Father Nonso that dares to destroy us and drive us out of our land?" Solomon, now fully in his witch doctor form, continued speaking angrily. "Well, we have until tomorrow to finish him off. Since he is here now to rest, make food for him and put all the venom from every member of our coven in Igalo. Let's see how he survives that," Matthew said with a deep frown. They all agreed. Solomon then changed back into a seminarian, looking young and fresh, and walked out from where he had been speaking with Matthew. But to Solomon's surprise, Father Nonso was already talking to the villagers, who had gathered at the gate singing praises. "Seminarian, we are going to begin prayers now. No need to wait until night, join us. Father Nonso said with a smile. Solomon began to shake. He didn't know what was happening to him anymore, but he managed to smile and follow them. I thought you would rest and have something to eat. I was already making something for you, Solomon whispered into Father Nonso's ear. But Father Nonso only smiled and refused to respond. Instead, he told Solomon to join him at the altar. Solomon obeyed, and the prayers began. As the service went on, Solomon tried to pull away and leave the church. He was becoming uncomfortable, but Father Nonso held his hand tight and prayed in a loud voice while the whole congregation shouted Amen. Father Nonso wanted to see the true face of this seminarian. He wondered who could disguise himself so well and know so much about the seminary. Yet, unlike others he had unmasked since arriving in the village, he still could not see who was hiding behind this mask. So he continued praying until Brother Solomon began to cry and scream for help. Everyone stopped in surprise, while Father Nonso smiled. He turned to Solomon and shouted, "Show yourself now. You think you can harm me with your little trick? Show yourself now." At that command, Brother Solomon transformed into an old, frail-looking, filthy witch doctor with animal features, patches of fur and long ears. The congregation wanted to run out of the church, but seeing how weak he looked made them stay back and watch from a distance. Father Nonso then went behind the altar, brought out large quantities of salt and water, prayed over them, and began pouring them on him. Then, a noise grew closer. A loud chanting mixed with the sound of marching feet filled the air. Father Nonso, still praying, didn't notice it until he expected an amen from the congregation and heard none. He looked up and saw no one in the church. The chanting was now right outside. He ran to the window and saw them, all the witches and evil people who had been holding Igalo village captive. They were marching toward the church in broad daylight, each carrying a small clay pot, all dressed in black. For the first time, Father Nonso felt fear. He looked around and saw himself alone with the witch doctor. Quickly, he ran to the door of the church to close it, but the witch doctor began to laugh weakly and said, "You dared us. You are in our land. We will use you as supper tonight." Father Nonso did something he never thought he would do. He quickly poured the remaining holy water and salt inside the church, then ran outside through one of the doors after locking the other two. He slipped out through the back entrance, locked it from the outside, and hid under a small fallen hut behind the parish house. The witches surrounded the church. Some were standing so close to where Father Nonso hid that he could hear their breathing, yet none of them saw or noticed him. A group entered the church while others waited outside. After a while, they all moved inside, their loud chanting filling the air. "We need to drive a knife through that stupid Father Nonso who thinks he can fight us," their leader, the fake Brother Solomon, now fully restored to his power, shouted. Yes, they all chorused. By then, Father Nonso had slipped away from his hiding place. He ran straight to the church's main entrance and locked it from the outside with a key, then secured the remaining doors as well. When the witches realized they were trapped, they became furious and began pounding the doors angrily. But they were all very old, and they lacked the strength to break them down. They tried using their dark powers to force the doors open, but nothing worked. Their enraged screams carried across the village, drawing the attention of the villagers who had been hiding in fear. One by one, they emerged from their homes and joined Father Nonso outside the church. Before he could stop them, the villagers had fetched kerosene and began pouring it around the church. "No, don't do this," Father Nonso shouted, but it was as if something had taken control of them. In seconds, the flames roared to life. The cries of the witches and wizards trapped inside could be heard from one end of Igalo to the other. Father Nonso wept. Yet, as the fire consumed the building, he felt a great darkness lift from the village. Chains were broken, invisible cages shattered, and people were being freed from long-standing captivity. When the flames died and light returned to Igalo, it was clear that every last witch and wizard had perished. Father Nonso quietly left the scene. He entered the parish house, packed his belongings, and began the journey back to the diocese. He arrived just before midnight, collapsed to the ground, and began singing praises to God. Hearing of his return, the bishop sent for him immediately. "My work is done in Igalo," Father Nonso said, falling at the bishop's feet. "I know," the bishop replied. From that day, Igalo was free and safe again. The people could think clearly, and the mad among them regained their sanity. A week later, another priest was sent to rebuild the parish. Father Nonso's mission as a priest truly began then. He became known as a liberator of the spiritually oppressed, sent wherever people were in bondage. His moral purity and steadfastness only made him more powerful. Wherever his name was mentioned, evil people would flee as fast as they could. You can be like Father Nonso. Anyone can be like him. Just keep your hands clean and your thoughts pure, and you will find yourself conquering the world.